Come on, be good.
Michael Thorbjornsen looked like the kind of golfer the sport wants to believe in. Young, polished, educated, quiet, a Stanford player with a clean record, a heavy last name, and a swing that seemed to arrive before the rest of him did. To the public, he was simple to understand. The gifted kid, the disciplined kid, the one who had always been ahead of schedule. He won the U.S. Junior Amateur. He made the cut at the U.S. Open as a teenager. He stood near the top of a PGA Tour leaderboard while still an amateur. Then he became one of the faces of PGA Tour University, the new pathway designed to carry elite college players straight into professional golf. It looked natural, almost too natural. Because long before Stanford, before the tour, before the cameras learned his name, there was another image. A baby in a house, holding a golf club that was not made for him. According to reporting, Michael's mother Sandra once described him at 8 months old using a full-size club tucked under his arm hitting balls into a net indoors. 8 months old. The story was told as a family memory. Warm, strange, almost funny. Then came another one. At 2 years old, Michael was already playing 9 holes. And when most children would avoid the bunker, he wanted the ball in the sand. He wanted the difficult place. For years, those details sounded beautiful. They made him seem chosen. But when a child is described as built for a sport before he can even understand the sport, the story becomes less simple. The warning was there early, not as a scandal, not as an accusation, as a question nobody needed to ask while everything was working. Was Michael Thorbjornsen born into golf, or was he slowly arranged around it? There is no public evidence of wrongdoing by his family. There are no public allegations that turn this into a legal case. His parents are not villains in this story. What remains is not a verdict. It is a timeline. And the timeline begins before Michael could speak for himself. Golf was already inside the family. Sandra had played. Ted, Michael's father, encouraged her to take up the game partly for business, partly for networking, because golf has always opened certain doors. She found she had a natural swing. The game moved from something social into something personal. Then Michael came along, and quickly the game moved again. From parent to child, from hobby to routine, from routine to identity. This is how many sports stories begin. A parent sees something, a child responds. The early signs look unusual, the family leans in. At first everyone calls it love, and maybe it is. But in elite youth sports, love often becomes logistics. Somebody has to drive. Somebody has to pay. Somebody has to watch the scores, enter the events, manage the calendar, carry the younger children along, and protect the belief that all of this is going somewhere. In Michael's case, much of that weight fell on Sandra. When Ted's work took him overseas, she was the one moving with the operation. She took Michael to local tournaments. She brought his 3 younger sisters. She watched. She kept track. She helped guide the early stages of his golf. She was not just in the background. She was part of the engine. That is the detail public stories often soften. They call it sacrifice and then move on. But sacrifice does not disappear because the child wins. It lands somewhere. It lands on the parent who becomes driver, coach, scheduler, and shield. It lands on the siblings who grow up around someone else's tournament calendar. It lands on the family that slowly changes shape around one talent. Michael was still a child. He did not design the system, but the system knew what to do with him. The better he became, the easier every choice was to justify. More tournaments, more travel, more structure, more serious competition, and then eventually IMG Academy. For a young golfer chasing national competition, IMG made sense. It offered visibility. It offered elite training. It offered access to the junior golf world where rankings, coaches, and invitations begin to decide who gets seen. On paper, it was a smart decision. That is what makes the story uncomfortable. Nothing had to look wrong. The machinery of youth golf does not announce itself as pressure. It uses better words. Opportunity, development, exposure, preparation. But each word asks for more. More time, more distance, more money, more belief from the family, more identity from the child. By the time Michael arrived at national tournaments, the story had already been prepared for him. He was no longer just a boy who liked golf. He was a prospect. That word changes everything. A prospect is watched differently. A prospect is forgiven differently. A prospect is protected by results. If he wins, the family was right. If he rises, the system was right. If he becomes famous, nobody goes back and questions the cost. Then came the first major proof. The US Junior Amateur. Before the tournament, according to reporting, Michael was sick, a fever, weakness, a body that, for a moment, did not match the story built around him. For another teenager, that might have been the end of the week. For Michael, it became part of the legend. He played, he won, and once he won, the illness no longer sounded like a warning. It sounded like character. Golf does this often. Pain becomes toughness. Pressure becomes maturity. Risk becomes proof. The result cleans the moment. Nobody asks too much after a trophy. That victory changed his image. He was not only talented anymore, he was national. He was a name. He was someone the sport could point to and say, this is what the pathway produces. A year later, he made the cut at the US Open. Still a teenager. Still not a professional. But already standing in rooms most players never reach. The public saw a clean rise. Junior champion, major start, Stanford future. The story had no visible cracks. Then came Stanford, and the image became even safer. Stanford gave Michael a kind of protection no junior trophy could provide. It wrapped him in prestige. It made the rise look disciplined, educated, controlled. He was not just another young golfer chasing the tour. He was a Stanford golfer. That mattered. The sport understood the symbol. Stanford meant intelligence. It meant tradition. It meant the shadow of Tiger Woods. And the idea that greatness could be polished before it became public. Michael fit the frame. Quiet, serious, composed. A player who looked as if every step had been planned. But planning is exactly the question. How much of a life can be planned before the person living it is old enough to choose? Nobody needed to answer. The scores were good. The image held. Then, in 2022, something happened that made the old timeline impossible to ignore. At the Travelers Championship, Michael played as an amateur and finished near the top of a PGA Tour event. Fourth place, against professionals. Against men whose job was to beat him. For a few days, the college player did not look like a visitor. He looked like someone who already belonged. But because he was still an amateur, he could not take the prize money attached to that finish. Hundreds of thousands of dollars moved past him. The moment was strange enough to become a headline. A young man good enough to beat professionals, but not allowed to be paid like one. That was not Michael's scandal. It was the system revealing itself. Junior golf had benefited from him. Stanford had benefited from him.
Come on, be good.
The PGA Tour benefited from his story. Television benefited from the drama. But when professional money appeared, the rules still placed him outside the economy. He was valuable, but not yet eligible. Same, but not fully admitted. That is the pattern running through the file. The system finds the child early. The family builds the schedule. The academies sharpen the talent. The colleges polish the image. The tour uses the story. And at each step, the same question is postponed. What did it cost before the cameras arrived? By 2023, Michael was close to the professional door. PGA Tour University had become the bridge. He was exactly the kind of player the program was designed to reward. Then, his body interrupted the story. A back stress fracture forced him out of major amateur events. Around the same period, he also dealt with an ankle issue that required surgery. According to reports, he spent time confined to bed, unable to move normally, unsure when golf would feel normal again. This was not just an injury note. It was the body entering the evidence. For years, Michael's story had been told through achievement, wins, cuts made, rankings, college honors, future projections. But the body does not care about projection. It answers repetition with pain. It answers pressure with limits. No public evidence proves that one decision, one coach, one academy, or one parent caused those injuries. That would be too simple. What is confirmed is that Michael's climb began unusually early. What is confirmed is that his path was intense. What is confirmed is that by his early 20s, the body had already become part of the story. He came back. That also must be said. He returned to competition. He held his place in PGA Tour University. He earned his PGA Tour card. He became proof that the pathway worked. For Michael, it was a victory. For Stanford, it was a victory. For PGA Tour University, it was a marketing dream. The clean image survived. But after the comeback, the old details sounded different. The baby with the full-size club, the toddler choosing the bunker, the mother carrying the early years, the sisters along for the ride, the academy decision, the fever before the junior title, the unpaid prize money, the injuries before the professional breakthrough. None of these details proves anything dark by itself. Together they create pressure, not proof. Pressure. This is not a story about a family doing something obviously wrong. It is more difficult than that. It is a story about a family doing what elite sports often rewards. Seeing talent early, feeding it, protecting it, moving life around it, believing the result will justify the cost. And in Michael's case, the result did justify many things. He became a national talent before college. He became a Stanford star. He reached the PGA Tour. But success does not erase the machinery that produced it. It only makes the machinery harder to question. Because when the child becomes the star, everyone wants the origin story to stay beautiful. A baby swinging a club, a toddler in the sand, a mother who believed, a father who opened the door to the game, a family that sacrificed, a sport that rewarded them. That is the version golf prefers. The other version is quieter. A child entered a system before he could name it. A mother carried more than the public saw. A family became part of a schedule. And a sport that loves prodigies got exactly what it wanted. At the beginning, the club was too big for Michael Thorbjornsen. But everyone smiled because he could swing it. Years later, the question is not whether he was talented. The question is how early the game began asking for the rest of his life. Maybe he was born into golf. Maybe he chose it later. Or maybe, by the time he was old enough to choose, golf had already chosen him.